We
Oh,
are live.
hi.
What's up, everybody? How we all living?
We're here.
We're here.
We're here.
At least for now.
Yeah, for now.
That's right. That's
Mm.
right.
At least for now. I mean, we have an agenda, but you never know what can change.
That's
And that
right.
You don't know.
Episode 1 of the Zuckage Podcast. I am Dr. Awkward, Chris Nickvinda, joined by Andrew and Kendal.
We're excited, man.
3/4 of the management group inside of Zuckage. So
3/5. Don't piss off Tim. Okay.
I don't do that.
Yeah.
Never want to do that.
No, it's good, man. It's good. We got
got to get in the chat, man.
He does need to get in the chat. He's in the chat technically. He's just got.
He is in the chat.
Yeah,
he has us on ignore or something.
He does.
Or silence.
He's a son of a bitch. That's why. But hopefully we get Irene on here too. You know.
Are you? Let's see. Are you seeing it yet, Andrew? In the
group in Zuckage?
No, I haven't put it in Zuckage yet. I'm sorry. I was just looking on YouTube. There we are. It is live on YouTube. So.
Perfect. So let's throw that link into the group, and then I'll hit everyone with the tag.
This is the part where I have to look back into the future and apply it. Okay.
This is compelling.
All right. That link is coming down there.
We can edit it.
Can we?
Yeah, this is.
I don't know. Can we?
Thankfully.
People tuning in
For
like,
sure.
What the fuck is this?
There's always a way.
It's okay.
Somebody will fix something in post.
We're learning.
All right, here is the link. Chris, you want me to do the post on it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Or did you already post it into the group?
Oh, and I didn't post it into our group. I just posted it into our little admin chat here,
I'll post it.
There's got to be a better way to do this, but
It's okay. It's like watch what happens live. You know, you just you just go with it. It's live. We're making our own reality TV show, like our government. So.
I mean, it's equally as reality. We have a president who's a reality show, a producer. You got a guy who's on Fox Entertainment. You've got, I mean, like, just that alone, that's a lot of experience right there. I mean,
that is tons, actually.
Okay,
especially
man.
For The Apprentice.
Link is up in the group. Everyone tag is placed on it. The little thumbnails that it got of all of us are pretty fucking good. We look great. So that's a plus. And I said that we'll bring Nettie on in 20-30 minutes and we can rock and roll. So, man.
Yeah, let's just I guess we should start here. We'll go through our agenda, but I guess the theme to cover your face there just a little bit there is don't fucking tell me.
Don't.
That's gonna be probably a running theme throughout not just this episode, but it's an attitude. It's a
life philosophy.
Oh.
Yeah. But we might at different times might say, well, that's pretty opinionated and just what the world needs. Another couple of old white guys with opinions that are just
not that
trying to tell you, like, because you've
not that
and I'm not a guy.
dude.
Right, you're the balance. You're balancing this whole thing out, and just you're balancing. If it was just Andrew and I, nobody would ever hear it. But now,
No, yeah.
we spiced up a little bit. But we're going to have different guests on, I think, who will try to fucking tell us whether they'll be able to or not is a different story. And we've got a guest on our agenda for tonight. I know there were 3 topics we're going to talk about. One, we're going to get into a little bit about tariffs. We're going to get into medical tourism, and we are going to talk about hand gestures and arm gestures by former politicians and social media personalities and entrepreneurs, founders, buyers, whatever you want to call
people,
them.
Democrats, right? All sorts.
There's a comma in there somewhere, I hope. And so we've got a guest. Andrew, you want to tell us about our guest that will be coming in a little bit?
Yeah, I'm super excited for Nettie to come on with us. It'll be fun. So she had bariatric surgery done in Mexico, and my sister's had the similar procedure done in the United States. But part of the reason that she offered to come on and talk about it and kind of be a part of our first episode is that she's been very open with her journey throughout, and that it's not the way people think of it, right? That you have this kind of stigma about, oh my God, you got a procedure done in Mexico, like how dirty was it, right? Like, these types of things. And I think she's going to be able to lend an alternative perspective from firsthand experience that'll hopefully open some people's eyes. I think it's really interesting as we talk about medical tourism. There's people who come to the United States for
we're not starting there. Hold up.
Okay.
We have an agenda. Okay. We're working through.
I think it's going to be really interesting.
Start right off.
It's going to be really interesting. Yeah.
I'm deeply interested. I think you're starting. I think you're already like tariffs. You're stealing. You're stealing time from something else.
Yes. We reclaim our time.
Gavel. No, that's great. So, okay, then let's start on the tariffs like our agenda was. That was subject 1. I'm super excited for Nettie. I think that's going to be a great subject, but we want to talk about the tariffs first. And, I've got my opinions on that with the world that I'm living in right now with work. We import from both China and India for our products. And so I've got some firsthand experience and some thoughts there. But Chris, this is really your wheelhouse. And so, I'll kind of like kick it to you to give your take and kind of your opinion on the tariff situation. And then I'll chime in and give you some pushback when I feel like it's appropriate. So
this is the part where I wish I had, I had a cigarette that we could start going through, because it would probably take an entire cigarette to start to talk through the absolute clusterfuck and ass kicking the United States has gotten on the global stage. It's pretty shocking. I understand why they would do it, and of course, immediately you say something like that in a podcast, and people are going to be like, "Oh, here comes the leftist ideology," right? Because that's what I am, right? Not even remotely
leftist, 100%.
Right. So that's not remotely what where I would be approaching that from that standpoint at all. I mean, so I guess what I would look at is my personal take, and then there is the facts of what we feel about it. It's never what we know, it's what we feel about what we know. But we don't have to kind of go through everything that's kind of going on with tariffs. I personally don't think many people even. I think most people agreed probably with like having something to go at China. I don't even think anybody expected him to go after like Vietnam and Tanzania and the island with the penguins and all that. I mean, if anything, we got great content for memes, more than anything. But I think by now, I think everybody knows that like these are not actually paid by those countries, and it's been interesting to see even Trump and team have backed off even from explicitly saying that, because I think most people were kind of like, are they now? Are they really? Like, who's really gonna who's really paying those taxes? Like, they are new taxes on American businesses. And then of course we saw him shift to go after, like, when Amazon thought about, like, was floating that trial balloon about showing what the costs were going to be. And like, now companies are like, well, how much do we eat and how much do we pass along? It's an absolute tax on American businesses. And where I guess what I'd love for us to talk about is the redistribution aspect of it, because, you can like tariffs or not like tariffs, and some people have thought they've worked. I can't really truly think of massive times where they're really effective. Like, they weren't effective in the 1920s. They were sporadically effective to a limited degree, but it's always a push and pull, right? You're raising taxes on American businesses, you're raising taxes on American citizens for these products, but that only really works if we have that sort of distribution or a competition in the United States. My common answer to people would be, hey, what was the best American made phone or like laptop? I was in the market for like a new computer or tablet. What are the best American made products for us to be able to, to kind of be able to use there, so I can buy that brand? Or maybe televisions or refrigerators, or like, you just start going.
We don't make them here. We don't make them here, period. Right?
It's just not there. There's like maybe a brand, and maybe there's like 12 people using something, but I'm like, it's crazy for like everything that, we've talked about this in our group. Like, you'll always have a trade deficit with your grocer. And I think the thing that was most egregious with this was when they rolled out their big cardboard poster board signs with trade deficits that were effectively not based in any sort of reality. They weren't factoring in all of our exports, only using kind of GDP numbers, but most of what we export to a lot of those companies is a digital economy. Meta and Alphabet and Oracle and Microsoft and all these non-GDP services and products that are sold in a digital economy that we're making a tremendous amount of aren't factored into these things. So, I mean, of course, a small country isn't going to buy as much as a country of 330 million people is going to buy. You're always going to have a trade deficit with your grocer. So they added that to make this reciprocal tariff. And so the formula was wrong. It was all based on something that was wrong. But we lost. Right, when Canada and Japan started selling U.S. treasuries on the open market, like, we had to step back. The bond market emerged as the fourth branch of government. It seemed to be the only thing that would keep them in check. And then there were these 90-day pauses. And this is my whole issue with people who are goading, and this is maybe where I'll come over to you guys, is that, the markets recovered. Right, when after we got the pauses, and then it was like he escalated, and it looked like that weird stair step thing with China, and then he like brought it back down and tried to be like, look what I did, I brought him down, but like temporarily. And so now we're still paying more than,
and they're still higher than they were originally. I think the main problem is it's a clusterfuck, right? And when you and I have talked in the past, right, we talk about markets loving stability and certainty, right? And we have none of that at the moment, right? And I'm not as opposed to tariffs conceptually as you are. I'm very opposed to the excessive nature of them, going to like 145%, and the way that they were rolled out. And there's a couple different reasons for that coming from the world I'm in, right? So when you put tariffs at 145%, the only people who can survive that are large, mature businesses, profitable, capital reserves, economies of scale. They've got the cheapest prices. They've got already the cheapest production. And who is getting absolutely fucked by 145% tariffs? Any small business that is trying to import, right? Those are the people that are going to go under. Those are the people that are going to go out of business because they cannot weather that storm, even for 6 months or 12 months. And so what you have is, in a roundabout way, in a passive way, a massive transfer of wealth upwards. Again, another concentration of wealth and power to the people who already have the most of it, and you're fucking over and squeezing out all of the competition and little guys who would be trying to break in. Now, can a small guy weather a tariff at 35 or 45%? Yeah, they probably can, but not at 145%. That is two totally different ball games. And then to just kind of touch on what you said about companies trying to figure out how much do we eat and how much do we pass on, right? The bottom line is companies are paying for it. And to some degree, depending on how much they decide to pass on, consumers are paying for it. So you and I are paying for it. The foreign countries where we're importing from, they're not paying shit. They're not paying anything at all. Not a fucking penny. It's the American businesses and the American consumer, right? So if the end result is to bring higher paying manufacturing jobs to the United States, because now the cost of production and the cost of goods is equivalent or similar to produce it here versus producing it there, I would be in favor of that. But we abandoned United States manufacturing way the fuck back during the Reagan administration, when he moved us intentionally towards a service-based economy and not a manufacturing economy. And so to your point now, there are very few items that can be manufactured wholly in the USA, and even those that can be built here, the parts for them are often imported from China, from India, from Vietnam, from all of these other places. So the idea that we're going to bring the production of goods back to the States and be competitive with these international labor markets is really fantasy, and I would support it in theory. But it's not going to happen in practice. So Kendal, you're muted, but you should unmute yourself and give your input.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, you're good.
A lot of those jobs, though, people don't even want here to begin with. So I'm still kind of trying to work through my head how it's a good thing that we're trying to build all these manufacturing plants for jobs that it doesn't seem Americans even really want.
It was super interesting. There was a poll a couple weeks ago that was like 70% of Americans think that we should have more factory and manufacturing jobs here in America, and 25% of them think that they should have one of those jobs. Right?
Yeah, so don't congratulations. You get to go work in a cell phone manufacturing company or something like that, screwing phones together. It's not going to work that way. Like, there's been so much more innovation. Like that was the basic stuff that I had done some just preliminary, like looking at wages when it came to auto manufacturing, because that was a really targeted one that both Trump and Harris and Biden, actually before he dropped, had made it an election issue out of, with Trump saying that he was going to put 100% or 120% tariffs on any Chinese-made vehicle in Mexico, and then Biden following that, it's like, yeah, well, we're gonna do that too, and then Harris had a similar but lower number to be able to do this, and they're all chasing that, like, that protection of those said manufacturing jobs, and they're already building these things. But in an economy where you sit there and go, so what, they're going to be affordable electric vehicles that, but haven't you been saying that more people need to buy like electric vehicles, and then with prices being higher, you're trying to like fight against more affordable vehicles? Because that's the end message that rolls through all of the whatever, is that sounds like they were going to make more affordable cars for us, and that was better. So what's better, the jobs or the climate at that point? So they can't have it. So I was like, okay, well, let me look at what the wages are. Okay, so UAW publishes like generally between $28 and $38 an hour for an auto worker. Fully loaded, that's just over $50 with benefits.
Yeah.
In Mexico, those jobs are between $7 and $10. Yeah. And fully loaded, only $15 an hour, because they have different types of benefits and far less sorts of protections and things like that are out of there. So they're about $15.
Do they have universal health care? Is that part of it?
I'm just saying, $15 an hour to $50 to $60 an hour fully loaded. I think that job is coming back here. If not, they're going to build a machine that's going to be able to better do what that human being will be able to do if forced to onshore that.
And the point is that, like, again, conceptually, bringing higher paying jobs to American workers is something that is going to have almost universal support. It's how do you actually do that effectively, right? And to your point, which I thought was super interesting also, he keeps backtracking on all this. It's a blanket tariff, and then it's exceptions for Amazon, and then it's exception for car parts, and then it's exception for the automotive industry, because he doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. Yeah, not a clue, right? He's just throwing shit against the wall, and then he gets all this pushback from these multi-billion-dollar industries, and he's like, "Oh, just kidding on this end, just kidding on this end. Let me change this." And again, the markets don't respond well to any of that, because with the constant changes, everyone's like, "Okay, like this guy's off his fucking rocker. Like we have no idea what it's going to be from one day to the next, right?" And like even for us, like it's not a win to go from 145% to 55% when before he got into office it was 20% or whatever the case may be, right? We're still 35% higher or whatever. Now, are we happy to be there versus 145%? Yeah, of course. But it was a 90-day freeze or however long he decided to freeze it for, and none of us really have a clue what's going to happen after that. He says, "Oh, we have a deal," but I haven't seen any official deal. I haven't seen any official terms from these two countries that tell us this is the permanent state of affairs now.
Those things do take, in all fairness, they do take some time, and they do have a couple that will be able
but like
to,
if then at the end of 90 days, what the fuck happens?
Then ideally they're going to kick the can down the road. They don't ban anything for the most part. They just tax it. They just regulate. That's what they try to do.
But if they kick it another 90 days, we still don't have stability and certainty. And if they kick it another 90 days after that, we still don't have stability and certainty. So the point I'm making is that as far as how the markets respond and what businesses are looking for, if you just keep giving temporary 90-day pauses and 90-day solutions, that is not the recipe for growth. None of us, and I'm speaking as a company that manufactures products in China, none of us are going to invest heavily in new product development or inventory or anything like that when we don't know what the fuck's going to happen 40 days from now. It's crazy.
And I think this is a legitimate critique of the Trump administration. It's like when everybody says that, like, "Oh, well, we didn't want a politician, we wanted a business person. Right. I wanted this. You would think strategy. You would think, like, what's the, what is the business strategy to do some of these things? But I also think that it's there has been a push and a pull between Howard Lutnick at Commerce and Scott Bessent, and I think Lutnick was he was the one pushing more for tariffs. Bessent's been anti-tariff nearly his entire career, even into last year. Now he's carrying water for the administration, of course, but privately that people have differing opinions and offer different counsel. So that's where at least hopefully we'll get something where they'll be able to maybe the next sets of pauses will be like, "Hey, we've got a framework on these, so we're going to go out 180 days. Or maybe the pauses were just sort of like, and something else will be in the news headlines so that we can just kind of quietly move through other news cycles, and it'll be about Iran, it'll be about Russia and Ukraine, it'll be about something will be up, and like all of a sudden people won't be talking about that unless all of a sudden it's slow news and people turn around and go. But I can't
Slow news. When?
Yeah.
Where? Can we go back?
I can't let go of this
Can
one
we
thing
get
because
slow news?
I want to make sure we don't both. There's a both sides here, and like the business, some businesses are eating costs. But one of the things you had said, Andrew, was this represents sort of a wealth transfer up.
Yeah, 100%.
And if you have big businesses, Amazon and Walmart, you know, two big huge companies, right? Largest, with some of the most wealthiest people that are putting in there, are saying we're gonna start listing the prices on the receipts, or you're asking us to eat it, right? I understand that the smaller importer is also getting screwed, but when you see
because
the
they don't have
largest
the same
businesses,
cogs, right?
right, but when you see the largest businesses also going, hey, you cannot have a wealth transfer and say we're getting boned at the same time too, because they're having to eat.
That's their MO all the time, bro.
Right.
That's 100%.
No, I think what's happening is it's a coin flip scenario for you here. It's a I win, you lose, or if you lose, I win, versus we both lost.
Yeah. We both lost, but okay. So
there's win-win
I'm
scenarios.
Happy to expand on this. I'm happy to expand.
This is a 4-box model. We can both win. I can win. You can lose. You can win. I can lose. Or we can both lose. And this is a we both lose.
Temporarily.
Yeah.
It's a we both lose temporarily, because what ultimately happens is those bigger losers, who are the smaller businesses, go out of business. They are not able to weather this storm. And when we come out on the other end and Captain Fucktard's no longer running the show and things go back to kind of normal, all those big businesses are still there without the competition, without the little guys, and now they're able to raise prices even further, increase margins even further. We actually had a very similar discussion about what happened with prices during COVID shortages and why they never went back down afterwards, because people aren't just going to fucking lower prices again. We're not going to very rarely experience deflation. Once it's there, it's there. And so if you eliminate all the competition, they're able to raise those prices up. Now, did they have temporary pain? Absolutely. Was it a lose-lose at the time? Yes, it was. But 2, 3, 5 years down the line, they are in a stronger position than they were before all of this happened. And the little guys who were trying to break in all got squished like fucking bugs. And that is the problem.
I can hear you, but I think with a loaded term like, you know, wealth transfer up, it makes it seem like, oh, the 1% are working against us and blah, blah. When in fact, they're bitching about it too. There is a causal outcome for sure, but you don't see these like companies even sitting silent. They're going back at the administration for doing it, because they also have, you know, harms to their business from supply chain issues.
But are they fighting for like all of the little guys exemptions, or are they just like, hey, don't fuck us, dude?
I think you see people that push back on all of it. I mean, it's like there are rarely times will you see something like, well, we're only going to make an exception just for Amazon. They'll make exceptions for sectors. They'll make, and I'm okay with even exceptions, because it at least shows that somebody is listening and you're not going to be stubborn. And that's a problem, where people are just sort of like, well, you're making an exception, or you're doing this. Like, don't you want people to be thoughtful and go, should you have gotten this right first?
Absolutely.
Sure. But I want you to be able to go be nimble to make an adjustment.
100%. But those big guys aren't fighting for the little guys. They're fighting specifically for themselves. If the little guys happen to benefit as a byproduct of that, so be it. But they are not pushing that. And then Carlos's comment right here, which lowered profits versus poverty, this plays exactly into what I was saying, which, yes, temporarily it's lose-lose, but one is making less money where the other is going out of business. One is having some short-term temporary pain where the other is losing their livelihood. And then when we come out on the other side of that years later, it does ultimately, not in the exact moment, end up being an upward concentration of wealth. And the reason why it's a sticking point for me is that is what we have seen over and over and over again for half a fucking century. For half a fucking century. It's not for 5 years. It's for 50 fucking years. We see a concentration of wealth upwards, an income gap growing, financial mobility decreasing. We went from the number one in the world where you could start at the bottom, go to the top, the easiest out of anywhere on planet Earth, where now we're like out of the top fucking 20, dude. Like,
that's also because that is measured. Are you Bilbo? Are you literally Bilbo's alt or whatever right now? Because I'm I was like, when
financial mobility matters.
Is Bilbo your alt?
That would be funny, right? That would be funny. No, but here,
have you been arguing
Chris,
with yourself?
Chris, I want you to address this point because I respect your opinion and this is your field, right? And like, so I always want to get your feedback on it. But obviously, you and I come from very different viewpoints on this subject. When I look at financial mobility and I look at a decrease from number one in the world to number 20 in the world, and the number one correlating factor of where you finish your life as far as wealth goes, the number one correlating factor is where you start your life. If you are rich at the beginning, you're likely to be rich at the end. If you're poor at the beginning, you're likely to be poor at the end. And this concept of the American dream where anybody can just come and pull themselves up and go from poverty-stricken to billionaire, it's a fucking fantasy. And it has been dying for 50 years. It has been getting less and less and less and less and less. And so that's where my no war but class war and the reason I get so fired up about these things comes from. So with that, I'll kick it to you and you tell me why I'm wrong.
I was about to stop you.
I was like, Carrie, Kendal.
No, I'm trying to I'm like, now stop and let him respond. He's all fired up.
I was like, he is absolutely. I agree with many of the points, and I think we have like shared sort of common whys. Maybe if we have different tactics and approaches about how to get there. So yes, like so many of those statistics about what things used to be like 50, 60 years ago, when I don't know, there's a catchphrase that's out there in politics now. I can't think about what it was. Something about again, trying to get back to what was there again.
Make America great again.
What years are they talking about, right? So they're talking about the 50s and the 1960s.
Sure.
When income inequality was at its absolute lowest. The Great Compression economically. Why? Because right after World War II and even Korea, Europe was destroyed for the most part and going through massive rebuilding. China and the developing world were not yet online or anywhere sort of connected. You had two primary countries, you had the United States and Russia, and as communists, they were far more of a closed system, right? And we started exporting dollars and trade deficits and money to let our dollar become the world's reserve currency. And we started projecting this power and exporting jobs, and because we were the only ones who could make anything at that particular point, then like the rest of the world was not there where we were, right? We became the only superpower then. Russia then joined that in that science race, and all the money that went into creating that, like all of that stuff there was no competition. We also had that. What else was starting to happen? Did we start to hear about in the late 70s and early 80s? Remember the We Are the World, and we said massive global poverty, and we're like, we got to feed the world and we got to do all this sort of stuff because everybody else is fucking starving, and massive poverty was like, people are like, you know that half the world, where's Sally Struthers to tell us, like, did you know that half the world lives in less than 4 cents a day? or all of those things that were happening. And so then what else started to happen? So we know early in the 70s, Nixon opened up China, and then over the course of those years, you had trade partnerships. Like, you need people to be able to buy your stuff, and they're the other biggest country that's out there still, and so people still buy their stuff. We want to buy their stuff. We want to make our stuff there. So, like, all this stuff starts happening. You have a rise of automation that starts happening. You have an increase of union wages that are starting to, or they're driving those sorts of things up. And now you have markets that are starting to open up. Competition was entered into this sort of phase here, and then all of a sudden it's like, wow, we could have these people do this, and based on their standard of living, they don't have much over there. We could build this factory over here, and we're still only paying
slave labor. This is great.
But if somebody is living in a hut and doing nothing or having slop, and all of a sudden there's this over here, and now you're walking before you're just entering into it at the top of the food chain, which is kind of what you're talking about. Let's just like, oh, you're exploiting this. But there's kind of a mutual, like, we're going to start here and you're going to start to build it, and you're going to start to build it. There's a mutual value exchange. And guess what? Over those times since the Reagan years, global poverty is down 60%.
Sure.
Right. And so because of all of this, and innovation continues to drive. So there are pros and cons. I don't say that there are not cons, but what we're talking about is trying to get back to the 1950s and 60s when it was so Pollyanna-ish and all this. But my final point here was that there was no global competition. Mm-hmm. Markets were not nearly as global, and everything else was destroyed sort of post-war. And so it creates kind of an odd sense of, we're not even comparing apples to apples for the most part, as far as how things are interconnected right now, especially in a world now that contains the digital technology that exists from a commerce standpoint, from a means of trade and information sharing standpoint. So
the only thing I'll say to that, because I love what you said, and we need to have a second podcast that deals more with economics, because we kind of riffed off of tariffs here into different economic systems and how they work present day versus 50 years ago. And we should bring Nettie on to switch over to medical
and to talk about medical tourism.
Yeah.
Let's do that. But this last thing, the American dream was never about going from zero to making $1 billion. Like, it was about pursuit of happiness.
A house, which my generation can't even fucking do, Chris.
I hear you, but I like the goalposts get like super far.
Yeah.
These boomers used to be able to make $1 billion, and it's
No, I get it. The only thing I was going to say is that the economic mobility aspect. There's other developed nations who do better than us, and so it's clearly not just us. But Nettie, hey, how are you?
Hello.
Guys, I'm going to be back in 30 seconds, but I have to refill my bourbon. I have to.
So do I.
I'll be right back.
Introduce.
So yes, so that's fine. I guess. Oh, they're taking a live break. I'll talk to you. Hang on one second. I'll just remove them from the stage real quick. We could do that. I was like, we have people that might be following along. We're not going to slow things down. You and I have not met. Tell me a little bit about Nettie.
So I am almost 43 years old. I am left-leaning. I am a wife and mother. I was a small business owner. It was funny because while you all were talking about how small businesses are getting, hammered by the tariffs, I actually took a break from my business while I was going through this bariatric journey, and recently went over the numbers to see if I could start back up. It's impossible. And I'm a soap maker. That's my trade. I make bath and body products. And
that's a great zombie apocalypse trade too, by the way. So there's a lot of people who are like, I don't know, I'd be screwed. But I'm like, that is a great one. I met somebody a couple weeks ago that made clothes, and I was like, you're fabulous. I was like, Annalie and I were out, was playing an open mic then. I was like, get a look at this guy. I was like, he makes his own clothes. I was like, he's definitely in the zombie apocalypse group. I was like, we're pulling him in.
Yeah, I'll keep y'all clean during the zombie apocalypse.
Very important. Very important. Awesome. Well, look, medical tourism, right? If we want to jump right into that, for me, it's so super interesting because Chris cut me off earlier when I was going to say why I found it interesting. But the reason I find it interesting is because not only so many people come to America for certain procedures, but so many people leave America for certain procedures. In particular, there's athletes going to Germany for PRP. There's all sorts of people going to whether it's Israel or the Netherlands or all these different places. And then you've got people like yourself going to Mexico for bariatric surgery. And then you do, of course, have people coming to America for what we specialize in, cancer treatments and different things like that. And so I think comparing the two is super interesting of who's coming versus who's leaving, why are they coming versus leaving? And what are the differences between going somewhere like Mexico for a medical procedure versus having it done here in the States? And why did you make the decision you made? So I think we should kick it to you and let you tell your story a little bit.
Okay. So I started out my journey at 450 pounds. I got that way through bad diet, bad choices, and bad coping skills because I've been through some shit in my life, and I won't get into detail because it's boring, but I'm estranged from all of my family as a result of this procedure. They kind of abandoned me because they didn't want me to do it. And they doubly didn't want me to have it done in Mexico.
Yeah.
So
man, that's a harsh reason to abandon family because you don't want them to have a medical procedure that's going to benefit their health. Like that's
wild.
Yeah, that's pretty intense.
I remember talking to my parents about it. My parents are divorced. So when I was talking to like my father and my stepmother about it, their response in the past, whenever I talked about bariatric surgery, was always, no, you don't want to do that. You just need to put in the work. Don't take the easy way out. And what they didn't understand is that bariatric surgery is not the easy way out. It's not a cure-all. It is a tool that you use in your health journey. And that's what I've done with mine. And I am up to 169 pounds down.
Nice.
That's impressive.
Yeah. So, and I still have more to lose. I still want to lose at least another 65. So I'm working on it. But it's a process and it has, it's not always been easy. There's been a lot of tears. It's been very hard. But I only have one regret, and that was that I didn't do it sooner.
Yeah.
And that I let my family influence my decision 10 years ago when I first wanted to do it. And this surgery, the procedure has given me my life back.
Nettie, can I share your before and after that you posted on Facebook earlier?
Yes, absolutely you can.
Okay, awesome. Give me just a second here. So for those of you who don't know, can you see it?
I don't see anything.
No? It says it's sharing. It's down at the bottom, but it's not sharing.
Well, here we go. Hold up. There we go.
Yeah. Okay. Hold on. Let me do it again because I stopped because I thought that it wasn't working. Okay. I'm doing it again. Okay. Boom. Done. There you go. Right.
Wow.
That is a pretty gnarly difference.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And you look fantastic. You
Thank
look
you.
absolutely
Seriously.
fantastic. Like,
Thank you.
what a difference. What a
I
difference.
know.
So good.
That was taken 14 months ago, not quite a year and a half, 14 months ago at a local pride celebration, the before picture. And I did not realize until I looked at these pictures today, like how I was built like a cardboard box, with legs. And now I, am developing a figure, and it's really nice, and I'm gaining more confidence and everything. But so let me move on to why I decided to have it done in Mexico.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I was diagnosed about 5 years ago with a binge eating disorder, because that was my coping mechanism for the traumas that I was experiencing at the time, because I didn't know any better. And trying to obtain bariatric surgery in the States with a history of a binge eating disorder is very, very difficult. It would have taken me years, because I would have to go through all the psychiatric clearances and all of that from my insurance company, not from my current therapist, et cetera, et cetera. So I started, researching how I could get the surgery and how I could get it soon, because I was in such a low point in my life that I was experiencing really dark thoughts and suicidal ideation, things like that. And so I was like, you know what? I'm going to look at having it done somewhere else, out of the country. Because I'd heard that people did that, but I didn't really know what was involved. So a friend of mine introduced me to someone that she knew that went out of the country for the surgery. And so she and I spoke, and she gave me the contact information of her bariatric center, which is based in San Diego. So I contacted them, and from there, I still had to get a cardiology clearance. I still had to get a psych clearance, but they accepted a letter from my current therapist. I didn't have to jump through hoops with insurance companies and things like that. But I still had to get all kinds of clearances. I had to have all kinds of tests run, and then have those tests sent to my doctor in Mexico, in Tijuana. And that was,
So in Mexico, you didn't have nearly in Mexico, you didn't have the same sort of number of hoops to jump through, or the things getting in the way of
red tape,
red tape, all these sorts of things.
Right. And it was something that I knew I wanted to do. And I researched it very, very thoroughly. All the different procedures, because there are different bariatric procedures. And then I spoke and had telehealth conferences with my doctor in Tijuana to decide which procedure was best for me. And the procedure that I had is called a mini gastric bypass. It's similar to a gastric sleeve. It just has one less anastomosis opening that they made in my digestive tract.
So I've got two questions on this as we talk about the differences between the care you received in Mexico versus what people go through in the United States. In your opinion, why was there so much less red tape? Why was it so much easier for them to accept your current therapist, to get these tests looked at, to go through all of this, and to be able to approve it so much more quickly and efficiently? Why don't they do that here? Why were they able to do that there? That's question one. And then question two is your experience itself going down to Mexico and having the procedure done. What was that like? Did you feel comfortable? Did you feel like they were professional? Was it clean? Was it everything that you'd expect from a state-of-the-art facility in the United States? Or were you kind of like sketched out and like, oh man, like fingers crossed this goes well? Like, you know, what was it like for you? What was it like?
So, can you repeat the first question?
TLDR. Why are the Mexicans?
First question, why do you think it was so much easier there than here?
Right.
Second question, what was it like? What was the actual experience?
Okay, so I don't pretend to know enough about it to have an opinion about why it's different there than it is here, other than that the insurance companies just require so much red tape.
That's what
and if they feel like I would have been denied for a procedure by pretty much almost any insurance company with a history of a binge eating disorder. Mm-hmm. That just, they clash, right? Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's a risk, and it's a pricey risk. You mm-hmm. know, it's not one that they would want to take on me. So, you know, especially if I have a habit of binge eating. So yeah, I'm not sure why it's different. I'm not sure why the invisible line between the States and Mexico changes the price, the requirements, you know, all of that. I couldn't even begin to speculate, other than insurance companies suck.
Yeah.
You know,
I also hear, I'm kind of hearing something else too, though. I'm kind of hearing that because it's not just insurance companies. Like there are a tremendous amount of laws and rules and regulations that are passed by governing bodies. Mm-hmm. And so when people like me, what I'm hearing is, and maybe this is confirmation bias, and I would love for you to correct me here a little bit, but I'm also kind of hearing, so less government, less regulation equals more freedom, and costs are lower.
I think both those things are true.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think those things exist together, right? Like 100%. Like when you have less bureaucracy, less red tape, less regulation, lower cost, right? That from less government, that is 100% valid. And the insurance companies not wanting to take risks, having more red tape, having more bureaucracy and regulation, like that is a huge factor as well. And where I would tie the two together is the insurance companies are the ones asking and buying those laws from the government. They have purchased our legislators. They own our legislators. The legislature makes those laws at their behest. They are asking for those laws, right? And so that is where the two come together. Right. That's where both of those things exist 100%. And Chris, you know, I am like you in that sense where oftentimes if I can remove government and from the equation and get them the fuck out of our business, that's the way I'm going to go with it usually. Right. You know, so yeah, that's super interesting. And Janae is right. You did take that exactly where you wanted it to go. Very skillful, very skillful of you, Chris. But I think it was a good point. Yeah, I think it was a good point. And I think the two work together. Regulate insurance companies, but even further, Carlos, like don't allow insurance companies to purchase the legislature, right? Like this is about removing money from politics and not allowing special interest and moneyed interest to then dictate the laws that are passed that work to our detriment and to those companies' benefit. Like that's the fucking problem, right? Like in my ever so humble opinion. So Saint Luigi, Janae, put a little respect on his name. All right.
That's going to get its own. That's going to get its own concept or own podcast topic.
100%.
So I mean, but I think we have some definite common ground here on this idea. First of all, I love the progress that you've made, and congratulations on your journey. And I'm serious about that.
Thank you.
Super badass, dude.
It really is. this idea though of when we bring in government, the reason that we have, because they just regulate everything, and we've got, you know, our system of government, and you're going to have the things that the House is going to do, you have the things that the Senate's going to do, and we have to balance the role of expertise, because if, you know, about where the market is involved, or where subject matter experts are involved in writing meaningful legislation. I'm for frameworks, not picking winners and losers, and I 100% agree with you that we have seen too many times the biggest companies sometimes buy legislation. We saw that with, and I won't go into the rabbit hole, but we saw that, you know, X amount of years ago with the whole idea of what does organic actually mean, when the small family farmer was trying to carve a place out with, you know, we're not using these kinds of pesticides, we're using these kinds of things, and this is organic. And then it was the big, you know, the Monsantos of the world that had the money to fight, to sit there and go, let's define what organic really means. We should really have these things on the labels, and let's put everything on the label. Yeah, let's absolutely do that. And so, you can't conform to this now. Guess who can conform to this?
Yeah, the
largest companies, right? And that's political party aside.
You know who held Monsanto accountable? RFK. Now,
that's true. And
love.
Come on, I mean, but he's not wrong. I mean, when you consider
I know.
The
there are
Obama
some things
administration,
RFK isn't wrong about, but the rest, I think he's an absolute lunatic.
So I think Janae, the reason I kind of interjected it is I wanted to get to what Janae said, because that was the second part of the question. And before we move on to the final segment, which is crowd waving and salutes, I want to hear about the actual care that you received and how you would compare it to American care, what the hospitals were like, what the doctor was like, what that experience felt like for you, because I think that is super important. And Janae has received care in Mexico for her broken arm and said it was phenomenal and extremely cost effective. And so I think all of us are curious what your experience was like.
So when I arrived, when I first flew out, I was supposed to arrive for tests, but then do you remember because I had my procedure end of July last year. Do you remember when all the airlines, they like had that glitch last year at the end of July on like the 23rd, I think it was. Yeah, that affected
everyone was grounded, right?
That affected my flight, and I was going alone. I didn't have a companion, nothing. And so I was really, really scared, but eventually got out there, had a private driver take me across the border, and went to the hospital. And I'll be honest, on the outside, I was like, I don't know. This might be sketch. And that's just because I wasn't used to like the cultural area, the architecture, stuff like that. Like things just kind of seemed a little sketch. And I was like, oh my God, I hope I'm doing the right thing. But then I stepped into the hospital and it was fucking immaculate. It looked like a fucking resort spa. Like it, they supplied the driver. Yeah, I didn't supply the driver. They supplied the driver. They had the private driver come pick me up from the airport and take me across the border. But yeah, it was an immaculate facility, and got to meet with my doctor, my surgeon right away. And we had already had telehealth appointments in the past, so we were familiar with each other. And he was just great. Such a good looking man.
That doesn't have anything to do with the medical care.
It doesn't have anything to do with the medical care, but my God, he was good to look at. And but yeah, like the nursing staff and everything, like they were just amazing. And I've had procedures in the US. I had a cesarean birth, I've had a wrist arthroscopy, I've had my gallbladder out, all of that. And the care that I received in Mexico, I was shocked by it. At the level of care that I received, because I always felt like here in the States, whenever I ring a nurse button or whatever, when I need a nurse in the hospital room, I always feel like I'm being a bother, you know, and I don't know why. I don't know if that's a me thing or what, but when I was in Mexico, I didn't feel that way at all. Like I would press that nurse button and they'd come in with a big smile on their face. How are you feeling today? What are we going to do? What do you need? You know, and they were just so bright and airy and just loved what they did. I mean, it was just it. And they weren't, you could tell that they weren't overworked to death like they are in the States.
Yeah.
Like you
with
could just,
all the nurses working 70 hours a week or whatever, right?
Right. I mean, you could just tell that they were happy and that they weren't working, you know, 80-hour weeks. And it was so nice. And whenever I needed anything and I would apologize, I'm like and this is something that I'm working on for myself, but I'm like a constant apologizer. Like I apologize to people for everything. And I would apologize for needing them. And they would tell me every time, they'd say, no, it's fine. This is, you know, this is what we do. We're happy to do it. So it was really nice. It was really, really nice care. The facility was really clean. Whenever I needed help, you know, because when you have bariatric surgery, you got to get up and get walking as soon as you can to prevent blood clots and everything like that. And it was like I would walk and a nurse would follow behind me with a wheelchair in case I needed to take a break, you know, and it wasn't like I never felt rushed. And I would say I was sorry for taking a break. And they'd be like, no, you're fine. Just let's get through the lap and we're good. So anyway, but care was awesome. It was great.
No, that's awesome. And so it was cheaper. You felt like the care was actually better.
Yes.
Right, than what you would have received here. It was faster.
Absolutely.
There was less red tape, right? Less bureaucracy. And so this stigma of traveling to Mexico for care, your experience was basically a 180 of that.
Oh, for sure. I mean, my parents acted like I was going to be going to some black market chop shop,
right?
You know, and
that's what people think about Tijuana and about Mexico, right? Yeah.
And I'm
in reality, this is the free market, or this is the market at work.
Yeah.
This is the market at work where you are able to have more choice, more freedom. You were able to get services at lower costs and at the quality that you were able to want. I had to actually go and look this up. Did you know? I was like, so this is, I mean, it's fascinating because one of the things that, and again, I think if we were to ever do something on like a universal care, it would have to be a broader topic with somebody far more knowledgeable than I. But the idea of you're going to have to do something to turn on the spigot. You got about 15% more, 20%, 15 to 20% more of the population that's still uncovered. I think it's about 15% maybe. And you know, you're seeing now, I mean, you're already seeing, and if your parents aren't in these situations yet, well, you're really thankful, or you're young and your parents aren't old enough to have this whole situation of where it's like, yep, and now I got the next appointment's in 6 months. I got to call a specialist. That's in 5 months out for these. Like, it's really happening. And that has been going on because of how long it takes to become a doctor and the red tape that it takes to go to become, a medical professional. I think there's going to have to be things like empowering nurses to be able to prescribe a little more things that they can do without the specific need of a doctor. But also just things like in Mexico, did you know that you can go to med school after high school?
Really?
It's interesting.
Like here, when you think about it, it's 21 years of school.
Yeah,
like
you have 2 years of general education.
You know, now that you say that explains why my surgeon was so young.
Yeah, it's like so. I mean, you're sitting there going, it's like, wow, and it's not just Mexico; it's other places as well. And that's not to take away anything from the medical institutions and the at Harvard or the Ohio State University or wherever that has a great, or Duke, or these places that have great med schools that are there. The process of, you need to have more healthcare professionals. What part of the system is going to be adjusted to create that flow? Because otherwise, kind of works a little bit like money. What happens when you turn on the spigot and you create a bunch of money and you fill the bottom of the revenue funnel, but there's nothing else to buy at the top, right? And you saw supply chain stuff that runs on there. The supply and demand thing starts to go, okay, well, what do we do about those people? You're going to have to import more doctors. You're going to have to change rules and regulations. But this is probably linked to a bigger topic where we could talk about education.
I was about to say that, like, this literally should be a whole separate topic on another pod of the education system in the United States versus the education system in other countries. Because like Janae just said in the comments, and that I just responded to, lots of countries do identify not only areas of interest, but areas of aptitude at a much younger age in children, and then start funneling them towards those things based on interest and aptitude. And many of them don't require things like 2 years of general education after you just had 13 of it from kindergarten through senior year of high school. You're able to go right into that area of specialization immediately following primary school, right? And so those types of things, I think, make a big difference. And that's probably why we've also fallen out of the top 20 or fucking whatever in education, right? We're way behind the 8 ball in a lot of different areas, and just unwilling to adapt, unwilling to like take the models that are working and take the things that are clearly superior systems and implement those into our own system. It's incredibly frustrating. But again,
I know I glitched out for a minute, but Nettie, I did want to ask, I didn't hear this part, but I assume that when you went, I assume that it was like clean and everything was good, because my mom is going in like 6 months to have elective surgery in Tijuana. So, I also am like kind of following the group of people who is just kind of like, are you going to be okay? Like, is everything going to be all right?
Well, let me put your mind at ease. Like I was telling them while you were gone, that the outside of the facility, I was like, uh-oh, have I made the wrong choice? But once I stepped inside, it was immaculate. It was like a medical spa facility looking like, I mean, it was absolutely immaculate.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, we good.
Okay.
Let me open. Let's do this.
Let's get this over with. Yeah. Okay. Well, good. That kind of puts my mind at ease a little bit. So I don't want to go back into the whole thing. Like Andrew said, we have to move on, I guess. But I did miss that. So I just wanted to ask.
If you have any other questions, feel free to DM me and I'll talk with you about it.
Definitely. Awesome. Thank
you for sharing your progress and your experiences. And I think it's fabulous, because I don't actually know much about the concept. Living in Cleveland now, we grew up, we always would hear about like, big time, like whatever they were, like sheikhs and princes and from the Middle East coming in, like renting entire floors of the Cleveland Clinic or whatever, because of their premier, heart centers and things like that. So I've always known a little bit about it, but it's coming to the retail level. And of course that's, it's been fascinating to hear about, because I don't have any experience in that. So thank you for sharing that, as well as your progress on your goal.
I'm happy to come on. I appreciate it.
Congratulations. It's awesome.
Thank you so much.
And big applause for being our first guest and kicking so much ass, dude.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Absolutely.
Awesome guest appearance. Appreciate it.
I am going to bow out. I'm just going to watch while y'all talk about the hand gestures.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be a part of
This should be fun.
We're very excited about that.
That's where we're kind of moving. Bye, Nettie. Thanks.
All right. See ya. All right.
Yeah.
All right.
And my heart goes out to her. It's
I hate you so much.
You got to start it right.
I'm like, that is a nice a smooth transition. That's what you call a smooth transition. Yeah.
100.
I'm like, what can I do here? So let me share. Let me. How can I share this? Hang on 1 second. Let's see. Can I present the screen? Yes, I can.
Oh. Are we doing
Or
it side
not.
by side?
I think that's what
There
he's
we
got
go.
cooking up. I think that's what he's got cooking up. Let's see. Okay.
Wow.
Okay. It's a good starting point.
Yeah,
Man,
we're just kind of going to
even the facial expressions.
Elon, no.
Even
No.
facial,
Elon looks so much more aggressive.
no way. Booker looks way more menacing, dude. He looks
I
way
don't think
more
so.
menacing.
I don't feel
And
that.
I
don't feel
literally
that way.
went to YouTube, or excuse me, I went.
See, Janae, that's what I
to
said. It's the
Google and
same
just typed
facial
in,
expression.
It's the same
But as we were told by
100%.
somebody in the group, the thing that's really the distinguishing factor here are the
Spirit
width of the fingers.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Who said that?
Is that was the big thing, is that Booker kept his elbow slightly bent and his fingers spread apart. And Musk had his
Or his
arms
finger- Booker had his
straight and
fingers together.
together. Right? Yeah. And that is the difference, and that's how you know
No.
who's a Nazi and who's not. That is
No.
how you know. Yes.
No.
Yes, they told
That's
us.
silly.
Kendall.
I'm saying whoever said that is retarded.
Ooh,
Like, no.
Oh, we don't say that word. We don't say that word.
Okay. Well,
Love it.
I'm a 90s kid,
Here we
so
go.
leave me alone. Well, born in the 80s,
This-
but raised in the 90s. Yeah.
Yeah, this unit of measurement right here. So just the little finger spacing between Musk's fingers. I think we should actually call, this is a full Booker right here. So and then that might be about a half a Booker.
With the fingers
something.
spread.
Yeah, because if you really want to get them really close together, because we know that Senator Booker is not, based on his finger placement, I think that naming the width of the finger spread right there is probably in honor of Senator Booker, is probably something I'd like
that is a ridiculous defense. I don't know who said that to you, but
here. Omar, I want you to know that several people did mention the fingers being spread apart and the arm not being completely straight. I want to say it was Jeff and maybe Katima. There were possibly a couple of others. It was definitely a thing.
Did you just say Katima?
Yeah, that's how you say her name. I'm pretty sure, just like
Is
Fatima.
it?
Yeah, you don't say.
I thought it was
Katima or
Katima.
Fatima. No, you white girl. That's not how you say it.
Okay.
I don't think. If I'm wrong, I'm sure she'll correct me.
I mean, if I pronounced it wrong, I will accept my whiteness and apologize for it.
Yeah.
But
I think it's Katima.
Shut up. I do have to say that I'm gonna be on the other side a little bit than you guys here, not vehemently, because I just think it's really stupid of him or any Democrat or anyone right now to do that exact same gesture. I mean, they're just like setting themselves up to be ridiculed and put in a side by side, like we just saw, to say this is exactly the same thing.
Yes.
I do think a little bit of intent and knowing as much as we can know about these two very public figures. I think that does matter to a degree.
Absolutely.
So I can see why there is a defense of Booker on this, in the fact that I can't even remotely associate Booker based on his background, what I believe his intent was, which is just my assumption. But then if I think of Elon and like how he's been totally red pilled in like the worst way, and where he comes from and where he stands, and to a degree, because once upon a time Elon was very liberal, which is fine if his positions change.
So was Donald Trump.
But it's just been so drastic And yeah, I just think with the hand gestures, it's very easy to associate Elon with Nazism just because of the way he carries himself and the things he's chosen to align himself with. Um, does that mean he's a Nazi? No. Do
No.
I think that he set out to do that hand gesture to imitate Hitler? I have no clue. I'm not in his mind.
Who knows?
But
yeah.
I can't understand why there is a defense of Booker just for those aspects alone. I think people are
It's
taking
like
into consideration.
take the L and sit there and go like, yeah, that was stupid. Why do any of that stuff? Like there is just no reason to defend. Again, if we go back to the win-win situation, I win, you lose, I win, we both lose. Everybody lost. Everybody lost. Like everybody, like it was a total loser move as far as I'm concerned. And if you go, I'm not thinking about what I'm doing. I mean, I have never spoken to a group of 20,000 people. I've never spoken to that. I've played music in front of maybe 1,500 to 2,000 people at most. I think at one particular point, I've never thought to like take my hand to my heart and then just, blah, blah, blah.
Straight out do some crazy
and share a Roman salute,
right.
To be able to do that. Or to even know that was a Roman salute because they're bringing that in. Like, I do think that this is what happens like when troll culture continues on, and I do think that I'm not going to forgive and say that there wasn't sort of trolling that doesn't happen, and like we have a troll who's a president right now, so it's like everything of course trickles down, and all that stuff becomes like okay.
And Elon's a troll.
Sadly.
I mean, he could have been doing that just to get a rise out of people. 100%. Who knows?
Like, look, here's the thing. Okay, is to Omar's point again about the video. We showed the videos. There was videos in the group side by side. It's extremely similar. It's not identical, but it's extremely similar. And I think the argument and the problem I've had with people being hypocritical about it is that they're trying to pretend it's not similar instead of just saying what Kendal said, which is, I feel a certain way about Elon Musk given his history and the context. I don't feel that way about Cory Booker given the history and the context. So I'm willing to give Cory Booker the leeway and the benefit of the doubt, and I'm not willing to give it to Elon Musk. And it's based on how I feel about these two individuals. That is honest. That is honest, and that is okay. It's perfectly okay for you to have that position and feel that way. What makes you sound like a fucking idiot is to say, they weren't even similar. Those weren't similar at all. Like, no, you're fucking lying.
It's the same gesture.
It's the same fucking gesture. It's goddamn
It's the intent that matters here, is like how you interpret it in your mind. It's like, what do you think this person is doing this in a sinister way or doing this in a
Omar,
I love my country kind of way?
Yeah. No, you're 100%. You're only making yourself look stupid. The videos have been posted. They are fucking nearly identical. It is you feel some type of way about Musk. You feel some type of way about Musk that you don't feel about Booker, and that is okay.
What did he say? I can't see because I'm not on my computer.
He said there's no similarity other than that they both use their right hand. That's the only similarity. Now, we've got a whole fucking group of people here. All of us who hate fucking Trump, all of us who cannot stand this administration, and not one single person is co-signing that stupid ass shit. That is not a legitimate, reasonable person's take.
I'm kind of co-signing it.
No, you're not. No, you're
not. To a degree. Because
like I said, I do think
they were similar, but again, the intent, it's different for me because the intent in my brain is different.
That's perfectly fine. That's perfectly fine. That's not what he's saying at all. He's saying the gestures were totally different.
I think the intent was different.
Okay, thank you. But the gestures were not. But the intent was, right?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
I think they're too similar to try to nitpick about.
Yes. Okay, so that was the kind of second point I wanted to get into, right? Like, you put yourself in this position where someone from the other side can nitpick the exact same shit. And now we're
Right.
talking about elbow bends and finger spacing and why it wasn't the same. And right. And all of this dumb shit that we're nitpicking about these incredibly similar gestures, instead of focusing on the important part, which is what Janae has been saying and what everyone else has been saying, which is Elon has a history of white supremacy and racism. Cory Booker is a black man. Yes, the gestures were similar, but the people are completely fucking different. Right.
Correct.
And that's where the focus needs to be. And if people would have just said that and just embraced that and been honest about it, like, yeah, the gestures were the same, but here's why I feel differently about them, I'd have never said a fucking word. I'd have been like, that's legit as fuck. Like that is absolutely reasonable. Right. But when you make the argument the gestures aren't similar, now you're a fucking idiot. Now and that's the difference. Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's just,
you can't be subjective about it. It's too, they're the same thing. It's just the intent that's different.
100%. So, okay, look, I don't know how much more there is to talk about these salutes and gestures. I know that Destiny was on. I don't know if she's still on, and she took slight offense to me saying it's a crowd waving if you're a Democrat, but a Nazi salute if you're a Republican, right? Like, and I just
want
and I just want to point out that, like, that again is like a problem with this perception, right? That anyone on the right, if they do it, they're guilty. But anyone on the left, if they do
like,
it,
why are people still doing it? Like, just stop doing it. There's got to be, I don't know, do this or something. Like, use both arms. Don't just do. Pick a different motion.
Right?
Yes.
Right.
I mean, like, I don't know, like
double hand jobs. Double hand jobs. Right?
Trump does. Yeah.
That's the current president. That is the
Trump. Yeah, that's his motion.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Do that. I don't know.
No, I agree.
Just stop the hand gesture.
Yes, because if you're not going to stop the hand gestures, then what's going to happen is every time someone on the left does it, the right is going to call it out and be like, see, you're the Nazis, right? And that's exactly what you're going to get into. The whole thing
is still like, you sit there and go, why? Why does it even have to come up? And it shouldn't. There are so many other presidents that we could be comparing Donald Trump to, if you want to say that he's a terrible president because X, Y, Z. If you think he's xenophobic, or you think he's racist, or you think there's these, we can go back to Andrew
We've got a president for that.
Right. We can go back. Exactly right. We had people that used to own people. We have people that fought against them. We had a big war and spent all this money and brothers.
We got Trail of Tears. We got Manzanar. We got whatever you want, right?
Trying to kill
all
each
the
other.
Atrocities.
And then you're sitting there going like, and then you got a president like Andrew Jackson. It's like, yeah, no, we shouldn't rebuild anything. We shouldn't do that. We should let it go back. And like all of this stuff, we drop nuclear weapons on people. We have invaded other countries. We just, like, there are so many things that we could potentially point to. As far, we had a president in this very country. I remember we had this in our admin chat, and some it was less known, but I think people here know. We had a president in these United States who locked up people just because they looked a certain way. Right?
They had slanty eyes, dude. They didn't even have to be Japanese. They could be any fucking flavor of
like
Asian.
The part, and you're getting locked up in a concentration camp. So when people go, you want to look at concentration camps, we could look at a U.S. president, but see, we can't do that. Why? Because it's not about intellectual honesty of comparing activities between like objects, U.S. presidents to U.S. presidents. We have to make the egregious leap to Nazism, because we want to make the point of associating deaths of 20 million people, and all of the atrocities of Adolf Hitler. That doesn't mean that anybody is wrong about authoritarian regimes, because any government that's going to tell you what mandate and remove choice is authoritarian to a degree. So you're not wrong when it comes to authoritarian stuff. You're not wrong when you would say, well, we're getting more single party rule or single party, X, Y, or Z, and we know that those have shifted. There's a lot of things that we could say, or we're taking a step backwards on social programs, we're taking a step backwards on equality and rights for vulnerable populations, or just anybody, in general, women in general. 51% of the population. There's arguments to be made without having to make this egregious leap of, well, this guy killed 20 million. Yeah, but I'm not trying to talk about the 20 million. Well, you've lost all credibility as soon as you bring in Germany from World War II. I have to, as somebody you'd want to make like headway into, let's talk about Andrew Jackson.
Yeah, what's another way to compare this administration to than just in, playing devil's advocate here? Because I do think that there are, when you're talking about, comparing it to the authoritarianism aspect of it, that's where I feel like most people are coming from. Not so much trying to make it about the 20 million people, but more so like what happened in the beginning, like how it led up to that. Or at least that's where my mind goes anyway. I never go straight to, we're in the same place that Germany was right now. That's not happening at all. But I do think that there are similarities in certain things, not all things.
He's literally quoted him multiple times. Like, let's not pretend there's no parallels here.
I know. That's what I'm saying. That's why people are drawing the correlations because of those things. I don't think that they're trying to necessarily say, we're in a Holocaust or something. But
no.
It's just the way he's doing things right now is kind of
authoritarian, fascist.
I mean, absolutely. Where are we going? What is happening? And none of them are on the same page. I mean, his cabinet is coming out and they're saying one thing, and then he comes back on TV an hour later and says something completely different. No, I don't agree with them. No, they don't know what they're talking about. And it's just like, okay, well, does anyone know?
And see, now that is something that I would identify as typical government incompetence. Because
is this typical?
A president,
have they always been like this?
I don't know. I mean, I would come back and sit there and say, maybe not exactly like this, but the thing. I mean, come on, like we've got old people right now. The thing, right? We got. Yeah, is it common for us to have a president who might not know what the fuck is going on right now and just being like pushed around by their associates and their close in team? That's also part of it, because again, when one side is saying, you're not just electing this, you're electing a whole system, you're electing a team of people around you that are there are still these people. Sadly, it's people like fucking Stephen Miller, who's like got the most punchable face,
a serial killer
that I would
okay. And Stephen Miller is like he is more on like the legit ethno-nationalist white supremacist side. And so I want to circle back to what Kendal was saying and to what Christy and Janae are talking about in the comments right now, which is, if we just keep saying, well, it's not like Nazi Germany yet, it's not like Nazi Germany yet, all the way until we get to the point where it is like Nazi Germany, that's a fucking problem. You have to be able to identify the pattern ahead of time. Okay. And now, do I think that
that's the point of learning history, right? So we don't.
So it absolutely is. And I would honestly, and I would still come back and say, boy, if there was only like laws or rules and places that we could look to, maybe that were a little closer to home, that might start look at like.
So listen, the guardrails are holding for the most part right now. They are. I know, but they are starting to waver a little bit.
100%, because he doesn't.
That's where we get in this murky bullshit. Like what happens if they get the right judges, or the Supreme Court decides to go a certain way one time? That's all it takes. Well, I mean, we're already in it right now when they granted him this
I was co-signing you.
Like, you can just can't be charged with anything as president. And I think that's why he's doing all of this so blatantly, is because he feels like he can.
Yeah, and
And
because
there
they're
aren't going to be
ignoring the court
consequences.
decisions anyway.
Correct.
Right? And so that is problematic in and of itself. You can say, oh, well, the courts are deciding this and that. But if he's ignoring the decisions, it doesn't fucking matter what they're
Or
deciding.
if just
right?
in complete denial, like the court sided with me 9-0. Like, no, you idiot.
Yeah.
They didn't.
And
Like,
that was
who's
that was
telling you that?
classic. That was classic. Somebody putting something down in front of an old man of saying,
Yeah.
"This we're winning." And when I look at it, I'm sitting there going, "That's Stephen Miller handing that to the president, who's too
And
smart, and too much of a stable genius to read things himself, right? You think he's going to read a 5-page or a 10-page brief of the Supreme Court?
He can't even read the executive orders he's signing. He has to have someone else read them.
So somebody has told him this, which is no different than the gatekeeping of information that was going on maybe in the last administration, that we would see that too, where the more you hear about that administration, it's like they were having to keep things from that particular president, of what's going on, like, because those circles do that. That's what presidential, like the president, this is what we're going to focus on. They can just tell them that. Now, you didn't see that with a younger president, right? Like Obama. You did not see that. You didn't really see that shit with Clinton. You didn't see that much with W. You didn't see that when you had people that were younger.
You saw it with Biden.
Yeah,
you absolutely
sure.
saw it with Biden.
100%.
1000%.
Yeah.
But the only thing different, in my personal opinion, between Biden and Trump is that Biden isn't a hateful, fear-mongering 24/7 about everything every day
narcissistic sociopath
possibly think of constantly. I mean, it doesn't stop every single day. I mean, that creates a level of like uncertainty and reasonable fear, I think, for people living in this country right now. I mean, there's so much shit, and I know that that's their goal, right? Flood the zone, just inundate them with all of this shit, overwhelm them so they're not focusing on like all the serious shit that you're doing. That's the plan, and it's working, unfortunately, but
it works because a lot of people do minimize what is happening, right? And and I get it. Like that, there's
the news cycle. There's such
a delicate balance between Chicken Little sky is falling at every little thing, and then minimizing things that really matter and are really important and need to be acknowledged, and deciding which of those is which, and when do we say, like,
what's the most important?
Hey, this is actually a big deal. It has to be acknowledged, and we can't minimize it, versus, okay, you're shitting your pants about every fucking word that comes out of this guy's mouth, and it loses its effect, right? There is no longer any weight behind your words because it's every single sentence you're freaking the fuck out about.
Outraged,
you gotta find that balance somehow, and it's a very difficult thing to do, right? And so and it's different for everybody. What might be my most important issues where I'm like, hey, we can't fucking minimize this, it could be totally different for Christy or Janae or anybody else, right? And so and Janae, I don't agree that it's not that every little thing isn't important because people get tired of hearing about it, not because it's not important. It's that some things are more important than others. Some things actually matter and some fucking don't. And some losing your mind about minor shit that doesn't matter isn't helpful to your cause or to anybody. And then things that really do matter, people brush aside because you're freaking out about all the things that don't matter. Like, there has to be a balance. There has to be a balance, in my humble opinion. But that's just the way I look at it, I guess.
Sorry, Chris, I cut you off. Go ahead with what you're saying.
I don't even remember. I mean, it's totally fine. I was going to say that I think it's you can reach more people to make a point. And I'm not going to curb anybody's, rhetoric, but I'll call it out because I don't think that it's helpful. I don't think that anybody is, in constructing an argument about it or trying to influence voters. And we have to kind of get out of this mindset of like, well, people don't change their minds, because the biggest defection that we kind of saw happened less than 10 years ago, and kind of in 2016 we saw it when it was really starting there. But that was when you saw, you know, the big fissure in labor started, when Trump started to like peel into that a bit of that labor vote, and then again you really saw it this last period of time, and that caused a big, you know, loss of vote on the Democratic side. So I think that we have this, like, you know, there's a tension of how those things are going to go. But
quickly, are you guys noticing any of the left wing independent media coming up on YouTube and stuff?
It's hard to find independent, like, I read a lot of stories from Reuters. I read a lot of stories from, you know, but I'll read stories everywhere, but I try to source them, you know, in places. And so, you know, Omar's point here, you know, who determines level of importance? You know, that's going to come back to, sadly, you know, government. I am a personal believer that the first question that should always be asked is, do we need a rule? Do we need a law about this at all? Should government even be involved? Do we have a rule? Do we need a law? Do we need that? Because they always come back and seem to be that we do. So, like, you know, and then you get people who are arguing over, well, who should be the master? Should it be the federal government that's my master, or should it be the state government that's my master? Versus going, I don't think that this should be your choice in any way, shape, or form. So, like, when it comes to those importances, but that's where the election cycle comes in. Like, I don't think immigration, I'm not a big, like, I'm pro open borders. Like, I am that guy. Like, you know, it's like, oh, I want people to be able to come here and be able to work very easily to be able to do those things. I want, you know, that's vastly underrepresented, because again, we try to, like, we try to make things so more difficult and so more expensive. That's what government does. Yeah. So the I think where were we going before that? I was trying to read some of the comments here, but
I'm fighting with Omar in the comments.
Oh, nice.
Oh my God. Can you focus?
No.
Yeah, no. I was like,
oh, I'm a little ADHD.
No, yeah. It's this. I guess to bring it back full circle about it comes back to our tribal system, and that's this what happens. Like, people have to hate. But I think that there's a better way to make the argument, and that's where I was trying to go. Is that you can reach more people sitting there. You know, in this particular case in the United States, when this happened, we looked at, you know, you can try to find common ground, right? People don't try to find common ground. It's like, I need to mock your name. I need to make fun of you personally. I need to, all these things. And a lot of that shit you see from the president right now, right? Like, who is a big ass troll, and who doesn't,
I'm going to do all those things to Omar.
You know, who doesn't kind of show respect. And then people are like, well, I'm not going to show you respect back.
No, I think you're right, Chris.
I guess, you know, so right. But you can find common ground. I think you can find common ground when you don't have to reach to Nazi Germany, because then it's going to be like, what I guess the thing that I also perceive is happening is that when we do have the next election, which of course don't think we're gonna have future elections, right? So when we have the next election, this happens, and people are gonna be like also reaching, like Trump did, to like, look, let me thank myself for this problem that I created with tariffs and all this problem that I created. They'd be like, look at the great job that we did in stopping, you know, and I'm still going to be like, I don't think that was still there, but like, now you're patting yourself on the back. Well, we had another election, you saved democracy, and now your side will get to be authoritarian for a little while. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, I'll never be happy with any of those things, because it's like, I think the only us versus them is us versus the fucking government, and, you know, and keeping them in check, whether that's a state government, whether that is a federal government, whether that is whatever. And like, if you have to have some, it'd be better more locally or whatever, but at least to push back. There are plenty of things where you do need federal things, right? We had a time where people owned other fucking people. Like, there are clearly times where you need laws to stop that sort of activity.
Now we have businesses that own senators, bro. It's just the evolution of it, So
or a president that owns them.
Yeah, 100%.
Tells them how they're gonna vote and when they're gonna vote, no matter what they think.
Omar, what was the question? I was like, what was the question? I want to make sure it gets addressed.
I'm pretty sure I answered it directly, but let's see what he says the question is.
Oh,
I'm scrolling
of course. Back. Only Chris kind of addressed it.
Yeah.
Only you, Chris.
The president is owned. The legislature is owned. Our government is owned by corporations. It's why Princeton termed us an oligarchy. It's why I say no war but class war. It's why when Chris wants to rebel against the state, I include the corporations and the wealthy elite in that, because they are the government. They are inseparable at this point. They own the government. And so if they're one and the same, how do you differentiate? And that's why no war but class war, baby. That's what I always say. And Omar, I answered that extremely directly. I said, subjective importance is determined by the individual. If you have an issue that is important to you, that is determined by you. That's subjective importance. Objective importance is determined by real world impact. How many people does it actually affect? So that I just answered that. Who determines the level of importance?
Or how many people agree with that?
I have a different take on this. I think this is controlled by interests in the two-party system where they feel that they can carve out victories. And I think that there are people that are like, it's not going to be about
you, asshole.
It's just who, what segment are we going to be able, that's going to resonate, that's going to either generate one of two things: enough support for, or enough answer against, right? Or enough soldiering against to be able to create enough online hate. And we can see this with what the conservative movement did with the trans issues, right? That were there, of that super small percentage. The conservative movement ran all those ads making it seem like Sherrod Brown wants wants men in your lady's bathroom, right? Blah 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 blah. So I think that I think the parties set those agendas about where they can carve out niches to win, and then they focus group the shit out of those. And then the second mechanism, Omar, to come back, that is the primaries. What issues, who got zingers in, who got, who's getting this issue. Well, that kind of made sense. And then, you could even look at media if you want to be, go that side and say, well, they're the ones who are asking the questions that only get asked in there. Those would be the only ones.
That's subjective importance, right? Because people peeing in the wrong bathroom is an incredibly small amount of people. Objectively,
oh my God,
that's not an impactful issue, right? And so, Omar, this is
it is an impactful issue for all these people that were made to believe that it's the biggest issue in America.
Okay. We're using two super different perspectives here, right? I'm saying that power is being assessed subjectively based on the ability to control people. Objectively, it does not have a large real world impact. It affects a very small amount of people. So when I talk about what are important issues versus unimportant issues, that is not an important issue because it affects such a small amount of people, and it's being used as a tool to divide and weaponize. It's not truly important. What is important is, like, if we provoke World War III, okay, that is objectively important. It affects millions upon millions of people. And whether you think it's important or not, and whether they subjectively assess it as important and as a wedge issue that they can use to control and weaponize, is not relevant. It's objectively important. It's going to affect tens of millions or billions of people, if that happens. And so that, to me,
it's
when
like
you talk
Trump's
about
lock her up speech, that became like a big rallying point to create all those enemies. And then as soon as he was elected, the very night that he was elected, when he was giving his victory speech, he mentioned, he was like, okay, we're not going to do that, and it was just, immediately back down from all of that.
Taco.
But it became, but that's where we should wrap up, and I'm gonna we should wrap up. But I'm gonna make Taco part of my closing. Do I realize that I'm contradicting what I said earlier? So like,
no, he's talking about me, but he's totally wrong, because I'm saying the exact same thing, that what's objectively important is what impacts people. And these small issues that are subjectively important are being weaponized. That's what I said. Omar doesn't understand English. I think he's ESL. It's an Omar problem. I don't know what's going on in his brain.
Be nice, Andrew.
All right. What are your final thoughts, Andrew?
Dude, final thoughts is this was such a good time, right? I love it. I love being able to talk to you guys. And like I said to you earlier, Chris, there's so much value in long form conversation and people being able to articulate their full thoughts, as opposed to 3 sentences in a comment on a Facebook post back and forth. It doesn't lend itself to serious discussion, and it doesn't give you insight to the other person a lot of times. So I think that there is a ton of value in this, whether we have 9 people watching or whether we have 900 people watching. I want to keep it going. I think we touched on a couple subjects that could be great for next time, like education in America could be a good one. Foreign policy and global impact of foreign policy could be a great one. I think that there's lots that we can kind of riff off of. Economic systems we touched on earlier, and I think we'll put up a poll, like you said, take suggestions from people. What do they want to talk about? What interests them? And keep it going. And man, I think all things considered, it was a great success, and it was a lot of fun. And I apologize for getting distracted by the comments section. So.
That's all right. It is.
What about you, Kendal? You give us your final thoughts.
I had fun. I glitched out for a little bit, but got back in. I think this is going to be a good thing. It's kind of been on my mind for a bit, trying to start something up like this. So I'm excited about it. I agree that we should keep it going, and definitely get input from the group. If there are things that they want us to talk about, please do share. But yeah, Trump sucks dick, and I love all of it.
The free Kendal hashtag is going to start here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I can be over dominating. Omar's probably got a point there. With
don't fucking tell me.
I don't think you're the problem, Chris. I
would say that my final comments are going to be like two things. One is, and we'll come back to this whole taco thing, but I think that can be disastrous. But it's just representative of the culture, because that guy is so thin-skinned. Like, do we want to gig him into more tariffs? Or are we going to start to say, like, wow, you were saber rattling against Iran, which is probably another topic for the future. You were saber rattling against Iran and people should evacuate. What are you going to talk? Chicken out. You're not going to nuke them. You're not going to nuke them. What, are too big of a taco? Going chicken out. Not going to be able to do it again, just like everything else you do. It's like, what are you asking for? Like,
no, I want him to taco that.
Like, I want him to absolutely. I want him to be able to stop it. But you have to, like, come on. So that's my only point to the taco thing. But I will say thank you to everybody who showed up on the stream. Thank you to both of you. It was wonderful. No, do we want advance? No, I don't want no presidents. I don't like.
I was gonna say I don't want a president. Anybody.
America needs a break.
I'm over it, dude.
We need to like be divorced for a little bit or something.
But this was awesome. We'll get some more topics. Thanks to Nettie for being on too and coming.
Yes.
That was awesome. We'll get better at these. We will have that. And thanks to everybody in the comments, and Jan and Omar.
Yeah, man. Appreciate you guys all tuning in. Even you, Omar. Deep down, I love you, brother. deep down, I love you.
Big hugs,
who was
tiny
there.
kisses.
Carlos. Yeah. Thanks everybody. I know Annalie was listening for a while too. So thanks everybody
Nice.
for
Thanks everybody
for listening.
Mwah.
Talk to you.
all right.
Adios.